The time of trouble. This is a very important and somewhat disturbing time frame that we're going to be discussing a little bit today. Now, we went into very off script last week, but if you were here last week, you would have seen that we talked about sort of the arrangements of events. Now, some people brought up, and maybe you have even heard, that we don't need to prepare for the time of trouble or any of the events that are coming because our bread and water will be sure. And that should be fairly easy to answer and respond to after the study last week. But we're going to crack open the whiteboard again, first thing here, and we're going to discuss a couple key things. Now, we have our timeline of prophecy, okay? And we're going to define some of these things in a moment, but just to kind of get the lay of events here, if we say we are here at the start, and, I'll put a little smiley face because we're all happy and, there's no trouble yet. Yes, we all go through trouble, but we're not in the time of trouble. Then there is an event that's coming. Well, a few events. One is called the mark of the beast. Then that is coupled with something called the no-buy, no-sell, okay? And then there's another event that takes place, and we're just going to write COP. That means, well, you know what? I'll spell it out. Close of probation. Close of probation. That's the next thing. And then we have the 7, and I'm not going to get to the N, last plagues. Okay. Now we have to define these things, and we're going to do this really quickly again because some people are new here and there's a lot to cover under this premise. Now, you've probably seen the thumbnail and the title. We're going to get into some of these different no buy, no sell things. How are we going to survive? Do we even need to worry about it? All of these sort of questions we're going to talk about. Now, before we continue on, I just want to start with a word of prayer, and then we're going to go to a couple quotes that I think you're going to find really fascinating. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you again that we can all be here through the technology in order to have a Bible study together. Lord, please bless your word and bless my words as we go through this study. Bless the hearers also. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, I will just give a tiny bit of a warning. We are having quite the storm outside. It looks like it is pulled away for the most part right now. But there is a possibility that we could lose power for a minute. We will be able to come back on shortly if the generators kick on right away. So if there's any glitches, don't go away. We should be able to keep going with no issues. Okay. Now, here's one of these quotes that a lot of people are referring to. But again, context is very important. So we have here from Early Writings, page 56.2, the Lord has shown me repeatedly that it is contrary to the Bible to make any provisions for our temporal wants in the time of trouble. And again, we're going to define this more clearly. What is the time of trouble? What does that look like? And when is it going to take place? Strictly from the Bible. I saw that if the saints had food laid up by them or in the field in the time of trouble. When sword, famine, and pestilence are in the land, it would be taken from them by violent hands, and strangers would reap their fields. So what does this mean? A lot of people say, well, we don't have to prepare because we have this quote here that says, we should not, make any provisions, and we should not lay up food for the time of trouble. Then it continues. Then will be the time for us to trust wholly in God, and he will sustain us. I saw that our bread and water will be sure at that time. Now, if you're joining last week, you would start to clue in on when this exactly was. And that we shall not lack or suffer hunger, for God is able to spread a table for us in the wilderness. If necessary, he would send ravens to feed us, as he did to feed Elijah, and rain manna from heaven, as he did for the Israelites. Then says here, continuing, houses and lands will be of no use to the saints in the time of trouble, for they will then have to flee before infuriated mobs. Now, just from this, we should really be able to discern when this is and the context surrounding this. Now, we're going to go back to the whiteboard just for a minute. It may be slightly longer than a minute. Okay. So we have our time of events here. We're going to start defining some of these things. So right here, we're going to put, you know what? I'm going to move that a little bit over. COP, close of probation. Now we have to define when is the close of probation. And we can do that very simply with just a few Bible verses. If you have your Bibles, please put an amen in the chat. And open your Bibles up with me. This is a live Bible study. If you have any questions, please put them in the live chat. And we'll try and answer as many of your questions at the end of the study that we can. Turn with me to Revelation chapter 15. Revelation chapter 15. And our first verse that we're going to put here is Revelation 15, verse 5. And what does it say? And after that, I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. Okay. So the sanctuary in heaven, where Jesus is right now, when we ask forgiveness, goes up, and he is able to actually forgive us of our sins and make atonement for our sins. But at this point, Revelation 15:5, the tabernacle is open, which means that he is no longer there. It's wide open. It's no longer sacred, and probation has closed. And this is giving us the context for Revelation 16, which is the start of the plagues. Now, if we go to Daniel 12, and I'm going to write this here as well. Daniel 12, 1. Daniel 12, verse 1. If you have your Bibles, turn your Bibles to Daniel 12, verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up. He's standing up from ministering in the most holy place. Stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. So let's just pause there. We want to take this in bite-sized chunks. So we see that this is the close of probation. We're going to add one more thing up here. Michael stands up. Close of probation, Michael stands up. Now, the other thing we found out in Revelation 15 is that is what triggers the plagues. The 7 last plagues. Okay. Close of probation starts, and then the 7 last plagues. But it also triggers something else called the time of trouble, which is the 7 last plagues. So we could put that in brackets here. Time of trouble. Okay. So the time of trouble takes place after probation has already closed. This is a very, very important point, that the time of trouble takes place after probation has closed. Now, what is the next sort of piece to the puzzle is found in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. And we're going to go to verse, let's see here, 16. So we're going to make another little mark here. M-O-B, mark of the beast. And this is Revelation 13:16. And let's read that. I'm going to move this up slightly. Oh, that might not work. I'll get too far from the mic. Revelation 13:16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So this is the mark of the beast. And this is going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. Again, we are here. And the next thing we're going to see is this mark of the beast. Now, what does that even mean? We need a little bit more definition. So we find out in verse 17. Revelation 13, verse 17. And it says, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So if you do not want to take the mark of the beast, what's going to happen? No buy, no sell. That's it. You're cut off. All earthly support is gone. This is a pretty catastrophic event for you not to be able to buy or sell anything. Now, we just read a quote that said not to store or lay up food for the time of trouble. The interesting thing about this is, when is the time of trouble? Well, we've seen here, and again last week, we discussed this at length. This no buy, no sell has to happen. Well, let me just add a little, let's see, what color are we going to choose? I'm going to choose pink here. Probation still open. Okay, that's very, very important that we understand that, because it's a decision. Either you receive the mark of the beast or you don't receive the mark of the beast. Now, a secondary verse that would go really nicely with the no buy, no sell with the mark of the beast and all of this would be Revelation 14, verse 9 and 10. And let's just read that quickly. Revelation 14, verse 9 and 10. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. Now, another scripture that can go along with this, there's a lot of scriptures for this, is Revelation 18, verse 1 to 4. And this is a very important one. Revelation 18, verses 1 to 4. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. So similar kind of thing. This is the fourth angel's message. Now, it's talking about Babylon being fallen, all of this. And then in verse 4, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, or mark of the plague, mark of the beast, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So in 18, this is the last and final call to the world. Either you receive the seal of God and you do it God's way and you can't buy or sell, or you take the mark of the beast, but then you also receive of the plagues. So this is a decision. Come out of her. If you can come out, that means probation's open. So while the mark of the beast is being enforced, probation is open. And what did we see about the time of trouble? That it's after probation is closed. Now, another very important thing is this comment. Bread and water, sure. And we just read several quotes that, houses and lands and all of this will be of no use in the time of trouble. And we should not store up and all of these things. But when is this talking about? Is this talking about the no buy, no sell time frame, where if we don't take the mark of the beast, we're not going to be able to buy or sell? Well, specifically, the quote said in the time of trouble, which we seen was after Michael stands up. But to take this even further, we are going to go to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 33. Isaiah 33. And let's read verse 2. Isaiah 33, verse 2. O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. But thou their arm every morning, our salvation also in the time of trouble. So this chapter is specifically talking about the time of trouble, which is after probation has closed. Now let's go down to verse 16. Isaiah 33:16. He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the mountains, munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him, his waters shall be sure. So here, it's very clear. During this time of trouble, now we're going to erase this part, and we're going to add this. I'm going to change the color to make it a little bit more bold. This is when bread and water is sure. Okay? During the time of trouble. This is after probation has closed and the plagues are already falling, which means that up until this line right here, all the way here, if I could put it in a controversial way, bread and water, not sure. Not sure in the sense that, meaning sure that we don't have input, because in this time our bread and water will be given to us by ravens, angels, and manna. Not that we eat the ravens, but the ravens will bring us food like they did Elijah. So now we have a very nice scope here, and we're going to add the verse, Isaiah 33, verse 1 to 16. Amazing. The Bible is so simple. It's so simple. All we have to do is just read it and compare it and let it explain itself. The problem is people don't let it explain itself. They want to explain it with their own thoughts. And this is where we can run into problems. So now we see in here that the first thing to happen is we're going to have this mark of the beast. But how are you going to know unless there's an enforcement? So then we have this no buy, no sell time frame. Probation is still open, but we cannot buy or sell at any price. Then the close of probation, the 7 last plagues begin. This is called the time of trouble. And during this time, when we're fleeing, specifically while we're fleeing and we're in the munitions of rocks, that is when our bread and water is sure. Not until we flee, even our country properties, is our bread and water sure. But during this time, God gave us a brain and he gave us the ability to do things, and we need to be preparing just like Noah did for the events to come. Now, I'll leave this, but we'll go up and we'll start another modified line here. But this time I'm going to back this up a bit. Some of you are going to recognize this date and have a lot of connections here. And then let's put this here. We are here, all happy and Laodicean, thinking that we have it all together. That's the state that we're in at the moment. And then we have the no buy, no sell. And this has stages to it. It has an acceleration process, but we'll get into that. And then let's see here. We have the close of probation. Okay. Now, we have had really an out of the cities message since 1888. And this is a very fascinating thing. Out of the cities. And we're going to talk about this a lot more in detail in another study. But 1888, some very important events took place that was biblically prophesied and typology shows, and it was the call to leave the cities. Unfortunately, everybody went to Laodicean state. Nobody moved, nobody did anything, and this was lost. Now, fast forwarding, we're getting close to the end events, and a lot of people aren't ready. If people had already made these transitions in 1888, people would be ready because we'd be passing down, all the provisions for to our families, etc. We're going to get into more details about this in a bit, but we have let me just see here. We're going to go like this. Grow your own food. And I'm going to put in brackets, learn. because that's something that actually we have to learn now. In 1888, about 60% of the population were farmers. Now it's a lot less than that. So we have this time frame. Before we go any further, I'm going to go back to some quotes and the slides. Okay. So now we have this context. We realize that when people say we don't need to prepare, that's not true, because the time we're not preparing for is later on, down when the plagues are happening, when we rely wholly on God and we're fleeing into the wilderness, not when the no buy, no sell is taking place. Now, surviving without buying or selling, this is the question. How do you do this? And it's not a question of is it necessary? It's a question of how are we going to accomplish this? Because we have case after case in the Bible, God warned people of things to come and they had to do something. Joseph, he was told there's going to be a famine and he's started preparing for that. Noah, he built a giant ark to fit him, his family. More people could have fit on that ark and all the animals that came in. He had all the food and everything necessary. Now, some just interesting information. The largest agricultural landowner in the USA is Bill Gates, of all things. The inventor or creator of Microsoft company. And he has 275,000 acres. Now, a lot of these guys are, have a bigger, greater plan. Why he has all this farmland, only he knows. And this is some of the spread over the different states and how many acres in each state that he owns. In Idaho, it's over 9,000 acres. California, it's 4,500 acres. Arizona, 25,000 acres. Arkansas, he has almost 50,000 acres, 70,000 in Louisiana. So he has a lot of land. Now, again, we know that there is a plan, and he is part of a lot of some of these new global initiatives. And is there something that he is trying to accomplish here? Well, I think there probably is. And he's getting ready, and I think we should too. Now, this is a percentage of farmers by date. If you look at this percentage of American workforce in agriculture, in 1940, it was around 70% were farmers. That has dropped all the way down to about 2%. 2% of the population in the year 2000 were farmers. This is a staggering thing, because when we're talking about growing our own food, this no buy, no sell that the Bible is talking about, people don't even know how to do it anymore. They think they know. They think, this is what I need to do in order to prepare. But they really don't know. They've never done it before. And usually when you haven't done something, you think it's a lot easier, or you have a misconception about certain things. And this is something that I feel we really need to be teaching our people how to prepare. And that's exactly what this next quote says. Educate our people to what? To get out of the cities. It doesn't say to die in the city. It doesn't say to be a martyr. We're never told this in the Bible. I haven't found one person, not one person has been able to show me that we're supposed to prepare to be a martyr at the end. We're supposed to be willing to die, But it literally says here in Daniel 12:1, Daniel 12:1 says, in the time of trouble such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered. God's people will be delivered. And also, it says their bread and water will be sure in the time of trouble, which means they've made it through this time. A lot of people have an argument that there's going to be mass martyrdom and all of these things. We'll probably do a whole episode just on that, but there is literally not one speck of evidence to prove this, because we'll talk about that another day. This is something that I think has steered a lot of people away from even learning about the last day events because they're so terrified. And some people just think, well, there's no point in, trying to prepare. I'm just going to die in the city. Was that an option for Noah? It wasn't an option. And yes, I understand what I'm saying is maybe it's shaking you up, and it should shake you up. I mean, when Noah was preaching, you need to be on this ark or else you're going to be swept away and you're going to die. That's the same message we have now. Either you prepare for the no buy, no sell, or you're going to end up receiving the mark of the beast. This is because you're going to be in such a desperate situation, because not until after the close of probation does the death decree even come. So you're not going to be put to death during no buy, no sell. You either starve or you take the mark of the beast, or you obeyed God's command and you prepared for that time. This is really important to understand. Let's go to this next slide here. This is Hebrews 11:7. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear. We know that something's going to happen, and that should stir us to move. Prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world. And a lot of people will feel condemned because someone is trying to prepare. Oh, do you think you're better? Oh, are you trying to save yourself? Well, this says he became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. So he embodied righteousness by faith. Faith in what? That God's prophecies would actually be fulfilled. That's super, super critical. He believed the prophecy and he obeyed. Now here in manuscript, for this reason, I see the necessity, which doesn't mean it's an option. It's a necessity of the people of God moving out of the cities into retired country places where they may cultivate the land and raise their own produce. I see the necessity of making haste to get all things ready for the crisis. Very serious. For this reason, I see the necessity. Now, again, I understand many people feel that they don't even have the means. Pray. God will give it to you. When Joseph seen that there was going to be a famine, when Noah seen that there was going to be a flood, he prayed. He did and prayed and did and prayed and preached and did. Every blow of the hammer was a sermon. And when we leave the city, when we go and we're preparing, that's a sermon. So for instance, I'll just give a personal testimony. I am preparing as fast as I possibly can. And I even have gotten into preparing draft animals. So I'm training up oxen right now to be able to plow the garden, because I can't plow enough ground by hand with a shovel in order to grow that much food. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you don't have to till, no-till and deep mulch and all this stuff. I've been doing this for a lot of years, decades. I've tried all the methods. I understand in certain applications, 100%, we can do a lot of those things. In some applications, you have to move the ground somewhat. Even in no-till situation, they use a power harrow or something, but that requires fuel. And if you can't buy or sell and every earthly support is cut off, then you have to be able to do this without. So the whole point of this is I have these oxen, and I'm very open with everything. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody about the truth and warn everyone, because that's the whole point of this. So I was talking with someone, and we're talking about, New World Order and some stuff like this. And I said, did you know that the New World Order is going to be religious? And they said, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, are you Christian? They're like, we kind of believe in God, don't really read the Bible. I said, well, okay, just humor me for, 15 minutes. I said, do you mind if I read some from the Bible? Yeah, go ahead. So I read to them Revelation 13 and crash course, Bible study, Revelation, Sunday law, the whole 9 yards. And they said, wow, I know why you're doing the oxen now. I see it. And they can see that I'm doing what I'm preaching. If we're saying, yeah, Sunday law is coming, no buy, no sell is coming, and I'm doing nothing to prepare for it, how convincing are you? If you're trying to give someone health advice and you're not healthy and you're not energetic and you're not able to do things, they're not going to listen to you. All of these things you have to do, and that is your preaching. Noah's blow on the ark with his hammer was a sermon. People see, are you living what you're preaching? And it's a witness. It's a huge witness. In the community here, there is tons of people that know that I'm doing oxen, and they all tell other people. They say, hey, that guy over there, he's doing this thing, and he's preparing for something, and he's doing what he's preaching, and he's growing this great food and all this stuff. It's a huge witness opportunity, and we're squandering it because we don't want to do it. So for this reason, I see the necessity of the people of God moving out of the cities into retired country places where they can cultivate the land, raise their own produce, except for those who can't. Is that what it says? No, it doesn't say that. Was there an option in Noah's time? Hey, if you're not able, you don't have to get on the ark. That wasn't an option. So what is the option? God's people should be helping those who can't. That's how it's supposed to work. If you're an able-bodied human being, your job is to help others close to you. Not every random person in the entire world who just wanders by. People who are dedicated, people who are like-minded, people who are striving for the same thing. Noah and his family and all the animals went on the ark. Now, I can go on and on about this. Here's the big question. What do you need to get ready? If you have seen and read the Bible and you're like, I believe no buy, no sell is coming, I believe God, and I will do all that I can to be ready. No, put all his money into the ark, I will put all my money into my antitypical ark, into my country property, in order to survive and to be a witness and to raise my children, and that I can have good spiritual growth and be out of the city. Because if we know to do good and we do it not, to us it is sin. If we're sitting in the city knowing we should be out and have the physical, monetary ability to be out, and that's a whole nother study that we're going to do. I understand some people think they can't. I'm going to give you step by step. It's like the baby steps, just like Dave Ramsey, tells you how to get out of debt. We're going to talk about how you can get in the country. This is something that I feel very passionate about and want to help as many people as are willing and want to follow God to actually do this thing and prepare for this serious time that is actually going to happen. So here's the thing. From all the people I've talked to who live self-sustainably, do all these things, here's the 3 pillars of a country property. Okay. Now you're looking for land. Maybe you're not at this point yet, which is nobody. Everybody should be looking at land unless you have an absolutely immaculate country property that has all of this. If not, you need to be looking. You won't find if you don't look. And God will give you the right one with all the land necessary, with all the resources necessary, and He will help you with the money in order to pay for it. Absolutely, that's a promise. I should have had that quote here today, but there's a quote. I believe it's an Adventist home. Jacob, if you could grab that for me. God will help His people to find such homes outside of the cities. Something like this. Find such homes outside the cities. You can grab that quote for me. Here's the 3 pillars: land, water, and wood. These are the 3 things that you must have on a property. Now, here's the big question, and it's how much? How much is the big question? Before I go to any more slides, we are going to go back to the whiteboard. We're going to go back to the whiteboard. Okay. Okay, thank you, Jacob. It is Adventist home, page 139.6. And at the end of the paragraph here, it says, God will help His people to find such homes outside of the cities. That is a promise. And that is from Adventist home. I'm going to write it on the screen here. 139.6. God will help you to the country. God helped Noah to build an ark. God helped Joseph prepare food. God helped all these people who, when He said move, they took action. God helped Abraham. He said, you need to move countries. And people might ask, and I'm very straight, should I move countries? If you can't fulfill the criteria that we're going to be talking about over the next several studies, you should move countries. There's countries that have no country in them. No sparsely populated, forested, mountainous areas is a better way to say it. So let's look at this for a minute. So we have any property, okay? We have our 3 criteria. We have water, we have land, and we have wood. Okay. These are the 3 pillars of a country property. And I'm working on some booklets that you guys will be able to get to have a physical step-by-step guide for some of this. So water, okay? We need water for a lot of things. We need water for cleaning. We talked about this a little bit last week, cleaning. We need water for drinking. We need water for our garden, etc. Okay? We need land for what? For buildings. For buildings, garden, that would be one of the most important one. We need water or land for forest / wood. And that brings us over to our next third piece, which is wood. Why do we need wood? Well, for cooking. We need wood for heating, unless you want to freeze to death in the winter. We need wood for fixing things. Fixing for building material. I'll put that here. Building material. Okay. So these things are really important. And we ask the question, how much? This is where opinions do not matter. And I want to really, really stress this point. Opinions don't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. The next person's opinion doesn't matter. Even the person who's in the country's opinion doesn't matter. If they haven't done the thing, their opinion doesn't matter. It's like this. If you're, not that anybody's trying to do this. If you're trying to be a millionaire, you don't take advice from someone who's not a millionaire and who's poor. You take advice from someone who's a millionaire. You don't talk to someone who's never had honeybees before, how to do honeybees, how to paint, someone who's never painted before, someone who's not a mechanic, how to tear apart an engine and put it back together. You want the person who's done the thing. So how much? Here's the criteria. Have you done the thing? Super important, basic question. Now, here's the other question. What is the thing? So, water. If you can't buy or sell, you needed a way to get it to you without buying or selling. So, you have different options. You have a well. Maybe there's a creek. Maybe there's a lake. Maybe a pond. Maybe there's rain. And you're going to need to know what to do in order to get all these things to work. Maybe you have electricity now to your well pump. What happens when you don't have electricity? Maybe you have solar. What happens if your solar breaks? A hailstorm, something happens, things wear out, mouse chews through one of your wires. You know, any of these simple things can happen. You need a way to do this that is a no power method, whether that's a hand pump or even a string and a bucket, if that is the well situation or pond situation that you're actually able to use. So there's all sorts of things that you need to be really thinking about and considering. Now we're going to be discussing land here. And there's a lot of things to determine how much land you need. And people's opinion doesn't matter. The biggest criteria is, have you done the thing? And the thing is surviving year to year to year and being able to produce enough to do that. So what do you need to do? You need food. And you know what? We're going to make this green because we're growing it. You need food. And we're going to go back to the slides in a bit and take a little bit more detail look at this. But how much food? So we need to ask these simple questions. How much? Now let's just say, and this is on average, the average person is going to eat around 2,000 pounds of food per year. Okay? 2,000 pounds of food a year. Now, what we have to figure out is how much land to grow said 2,000 pounds of food. And what is that broken up like? It's not obviously just a monocrop, which is just one thing entirely. Um, we need to be making sure that we have our varied diet and that we're staying decently healthy as well. So, how much land to grow this? The average globally is 1 acre per person per year. That might seem like a lot. Now, it is and it isn't. I personally have had a 1 acre garden and it wasn't that much work, but I have a lot of experience. I know what I'm doing. I've done this for years and years. And I have gone through the whole gamut, learning on all the different systems. And that's what we're trying to do here now is so that you guys don't have to waste time trying all the systems. We can show you what systems work. And you don't have to waste time or money or effort on things that will not work. 1 acre per person per year. I personally think this is extremely accurate. If you are really, really proficient, maybe you could cut that down to 2/3. That would be the bare minimum. Bare minimum. And I'm not talking about having copious amounts of food extra. This is an okay amount. 1 acre per person per year. So what does this look like? Well, if you have in your home 4 people times 1 acre equals 4 acres of garden. Okay? 4 acres of garden. Again, that's an even larger number. And this is not extra. This is not like, oh, I can do it with, 100 square feet. If you haven't lived without going to the grocery store for an entire year on 100 square feet, then come tell me immediately, but it's not possible. 4 acres of garden. This is, most people say, oh, I have, whatever size garden and it does me plenty. But you're not storing for the entire year. You're buying groceries, you're buying, your wheat or your bread or your pasta or your rice or your grains or your cereal or all of this. Maybe you have enough zucchinis, because zucchinis are very prolific. You have enough Swiss chard, you have enough kale, but that's with all of your other stuff combined. And you're buying nuts and you're buying soy milk and you're buying this and you're buying that. I say soy milk because I'm entirely plant-based. And this calculation of 1 acre per person is based on, oops, that's too thick to write. Plant-based. If you're not plant-based, it goes up to 3 acres per person. Because you're taking all that land and that food matter and giving it to an animal and then killing the animal to eat it. And it takes a lot more surface area to do that than it does just to eat the thing. So the most sustainable is plant-based as far as space is concerned. And I highly promote plant-based diet. I've been plant-based for 20 years. And just there's so many health benefits to it. But 1 acre per person per year. Now I want to come at this from a little bit of a different angle. We're not going to talk about what this actually looks like today. Um, I mean, if we wanted to really lay out an entire garden and start mapping out some of the different areas, which we will do in other studies. You're going to have your grain, you're going to have your beans, and I've grown all of these things in the ratios necessary to actually survive. You're going to have your greens, you're going to have, your different sections for different things. Maybe you have sections for like squash. You're going to have your fruiting plants like tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, etc. And all this for one person can fit inside 1 acre. So this is the great news, because 1 acre is actually quite doable. The only issue is going to be your cultivation methods and a couple other things, but which we'll talk about in other studies. Now, I'm going to go back to the slides for a bit here. Okay. Just give me one moment. Okay. So we talked about 1 acre per person per year, which would be about half a hectare per person. And traditional diet with meat would be 3 acres per person. And just for those who are discouraged or, a little bit panicked about the upcoming times, there's no need. God warns us ahead so that we don't need to be panicked. And let me just read a quote here. This is from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 290. It says, "The people were weary and terrified. Yet, if they had held back when Moses bade them advance, God would never have opened the path for them. It was by faith that they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land. In marching down to the very water, they showed that they believed the word of God as spoken by Moses. They did all that was in their power to do. And then the mighty one of Israel divided the sea to make a path for their feet." If we trust God and we do everything in our power, he will make a way. He's not going to say, well, you've tried, you don't need to. No, you've tried and he will get you there. We're going to the promised land. We're leaving Egypt, this big city hub, and we're going into the wilderness. We're going into a better land. Now, this is going to get slightly technical, but stay with me. I'm doing this for a reason, because I want everybody to understand how much they really need to grow to eat. This is calories versus land to produce those calories. These are important things that you need to understand. So BMR, what is BMR? This is your basal metabolic rate, okay? What that means, and we're going to get into a little bit of nutrition science here. Basal metabolic rate is your body's state of homeostasis, of just flatlining and not going up, not going down, just sitting on the couch, surviving. This is survival mode. This is enough calories that your body doesn't die. If you have less than this, your body will slowly die. That's not what we want. We need to have enough that we can function. We're trying to give the loud cry during the No Buy No Sell. We're trying to evangelize. We're trying to do all these things. We have to do hard labor, growing our own food, all of this. And we need to function. Basal metabolic rate, and you can figure this out for yourself. is your weight in pounds and you add a 0. So let's say, just for easy factoring, you weigh 200 pounds. You add a 0. That's 2,000 calories per day. This is your basal metabolic rate, not your capacity for actually high functioning. This is you sit on the couch, okay? If you're 150 pounds, add a 0, 1,500 calories per day. This is a very nice, rough, easy calculation to figure out your baseline that you cannot go under, or else your body starts to malfunction. A lot of, some people think that's a great way to lose weight. Well, it's not. Your body starts to malfunction. It's better you give it the things that it needs to function at optimum, and then you can actually drop weight. But that's a whole different discussion. So your macronutrients, everybody needs to have this in mind: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Even people plant-based have to keep this in mind. This is critical. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. How much? Again, that question comes again. How much? Plant-based food guide. So if we have 3 to 4 servings of vegetables, we need our water, we have our salt, whole grain and starchy vegetables. So these are our carbohydrates, plant-based proteins, beans and lentils. We need 3+ servings of that. You need a lot of protein. When Daniel and his 3 friends, it says they had pulse to eat. Pulse is like a lentil stew. So they were eating high protein. It said they were fairer and fatter in flesh. That didn't mean they were fat flesh, like they had big muscles, because they were eating enough protein. Nuts, and that's our fats. We need seeds, cold pressed oils. These are all really important for brain function, for your joints, all of this. This isn't a nutrition course today, but just, to be thinking about this. Your fruits, 2 to 3 servings of fruits. That's for cleansing. Now, what could this look like? So let's say you're wanting to get 1,787 calories. That's what this amounted to. That's why I put it there. Total per day after the 3 meals that I'm going to show you right now. So this is your breakfast, okay? 4 slices of bread, half a cup of strawberries, 1/3 of a cup of raspberries dried. Maybe it's wintertime, you dried your raspberries. 1 cup of black beans, a tablespoon of flax, and a tablespoon of sunflower seeds. It's not a lot. You just have some fruit, a cup of beans, and a couple slices of bread. And your flax seed, your sunflower seeds for your omega-3s, which is super, super critical. You don't want to get low on omega-3s, especially in no buy, no sell. You need that to function, have proper immune system. Then for lunch, you get 3 potatoes, 1 cooked from fresh broad beans. These are, if you don't know what broad beans are, this is a food that you need to be growing. They're absolutely fantastic. They are very cold hardy. So if you're in Canada or if you're in a cold place, you can grow them very early and very late. They can go down -3, -5. And then if it warms up a little bit in the day, they're totally fine again. And that -5 is Celsius. 1 carrot, 1/4 of a squash, a little bit of cabbage, cucumber. And then you need to make sure you're growing this, right? Then for dinner, lettuce, radish, tomato, bell pepper, some dill and parsley. This, after having these 3 meals, your nutrition value is still going to be at a decent level. And that's why I put these things here, because I wanted people to not just think, I'm going to grow like 2,000 pounds of potatoes and survive on potatoes. You can't survive on just potatoes. You need those living enzymes. You need the omega-3s. You need the other things that are going to keep you functioning. Especially when you're not getting the big variety that you're just buying from the store and everything with fortified, vitamins and stuff. So you're going to need to grow this bread, which means grow the wheat. Strawberries you can grow, raspberries grow, black beans you can grow, flaxseed, one of the easiest things that you can grow ever. Sunflower seeds you can grow. Then the next thing, potatoes you can grow, the broad beans, carrots, squash, cabbage, cucumber, garlic, lettuce, radish, tomato, bell peppers, dill, and parsley. All things that you can grow easy. Now, based on this, which is not, having super excess, you're not extremely full after these meals. This is only 1,787 calories, right? So for me, this would be actually a little bit lower than my BMR. So this is not even for someone my size. I'm not a small guy, so I would eat a bit more than this. But just to give you an idea, this is what that looks like in 1 year if you had to grow it. It'd be 145 pounds of wheat, and this is for one person, right? So however many people's in your family, you just multiply it by that. One person, 1 year, 145 pounds of wheat, 321 pounds of potatoes, 50 pounds of carrots, 73 cabbage, 138 pounds of black beans, 365 tomatoes, 17 pounds of flaxseed, 8 pounds of sunflower seeds, 91 winter squash, 70 pounds of broad beans, 70 pounds of strawberries, 36 pounds of raspberries, 2,000 radish. That's not very many radish if anybody's thinking that sounds like a lot. 365 cucumbers. We planted 2,000 radishes just last week. 365 cucumbers, 180 bell peppers. So that's what that would look like for one person. Now, obviously, also you need to grow what you like to eat, but you do need to grow what grows, especially in your area. And maybe you need to learn to like what grows and what is easy to grow, and make sure that you're hitting your targets, those carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. You should be thinking of protein at every meal because that's what's going to help keep you strong. Actually, protein is what builds your immune system. That's where your antibodies are built from, amino acids. And if you don't have enough, that can be why, even as a plant-based person, you're getting sick all the time because you don't have enough protein to actually function your immune system. That's a very big thing. So this is what that would look like. Just by pounds. And maybe that's like, whoa, you can't even look at this because you've never seen so much food in your entire life. But like I said, the average person eats 2,000 pounds of food a year. So this is just to spark, thought process. We're going to discuss this more in some later studies, the nitty-gritty details of some of this. Also, farm.amazingdiscoveries.org. We have an apprenticeship program that if you want to come and learn how to do this, you can come to AD here and we will show you exactly how to do this. This is some things that we've grown in our garden here. And again, we're in Northern Canada. And you can do a lot if you try and if you learn and if you adapt and if there's a lot of things that people try once and they fail. Failure is part of the process. That is part of the process. So we have some nice cantaloupes here. We have some eggplants, some different zucchinis, radish, green beans, Swiss chard, squash. This is our greenhouse with tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers. This is in our seedling greenhouse with all of our seedlings started here. Then in the field, this is a bunch of cabbages, lots of cabbage. We got cucumbers here. We got zucchini plants, some bunch of big sunflowers. This is all soybeans right here. These are all soybeans growing. Then we have a bunch of potatoes. This is going to give you around 2,000 pounds of potatoes, what we grew here. And then there's tons of different flowers, and there's sunflowers here, and there's corn, and there's, all sorts of great stuff. This is right now, literally this past week. What is in the greenhouse? We had some bok choy here. These are some of the seedling trays, our lettuce. We went to farmer's market in town yesterday, in fact, and we brought a bunch of the produce there for the community. And these are lettuce seedlings starting here. We're starting right now about 500 heads of lettuce a week, which you would not need to do for your family, but we're doing a lot different operation here. So this is what that looks like. We have radishes and spinach already. We have beets that we've already harvested, that we started early in the greenhouse. This greenhouse will be switched over to peppers pretty quick. But this is, should be very encouraging, not discouraging. It can seem overwhelming for people who've never done this before, and that's okay. God says that he will teach people in a few months what it took others years to learn. And this did take years to learn. Like I said, I've been doing this for well over 15 years. And you get better every year. I get better every year. So just to, encourage people that this is doable. You can do this. And yeah, it's something that we need to be really considering based on the no buy, no sell time frame that we are facing soon. It is something we need to prepare for, just like Noah did. So yeah, we'll probably go to some questions now. We'll probably go to the bunch of your guys' questions. I see quite a few questions come in here. Lots of questions. And yeah, just a story. So I grew up in the country. I grew up my whole life loving gardening, loving being in the country. And when I moved to the city at one point, that was the worst thing in the entire world for me. I had an apartment. It was terrible. And now I'm back in the country again because God just made a way. I was just praying and praying and praying, and God made a way. And he will make a way for you too. My wife, when she was starting gardening, she's not from the country. She's from the city. And we had a tiny little garden in the city just because I needed to do something. And she was weeding the garden one day, and she's getting down the bed, and she's wondering, wow, why are these weeds all in rows? And some of you probably understand what she was doing. She was weeding the radishes as weeds because she had no idea what radish plants looked like or what weeds looked like, the difference. And then she realized, weeds don't grow in rows. I just weeded half a bed full of the radishes out of the ground. So this is very real. She doesn't do that anymore. And everything can be learned. And this should be a big encouragement to everyone. God will make a way. Yeah, it's a learning curve for sure, but it's an amazing experience, and you learn a lot of things about yourself. You learn to trust God and realize this is not a save yourself. This is a rely on God, because he's the one who controls the weather and the animals and everything else. And you have to learn, you have to give all your effort into this. Okay, so we have a question from Sarah Miranda. The question is, does probation close for SDAs first at the National Sunday Law? This is a fantastic question. Now, there's a concept in the Bible in Peter, I think it's First or Second Peter, that says that judgment starts at the house of God. This is why God's people who know better, who are preparing for this time are going to be held accountable. And the mark of the beast comes to them first. Either they receive the seal of God and they obey God, or they receive the mark of the beast. The world, however, since they don't know better and they are going to receive the loud cry, you know what? Back to the whiteboard. Back to the whiteboard. Okay. Move this up a little bit here. And like I said at the start of this series, we're going to fill in all these blanks and show from the Bible exactly how to do this. We are here. This is going to be really fast. We're going to breeze over this. I'm not going to give all the Bible verses. National Sunday Law, okay? Just to make it clearer, no buy, no sell. There is stages, like steps, that lead up to this. And this is fines, imprisonment, I can't really fit that there, and inducements, but I'm going to use the word bribery. And then no buy, no sell. Okay? At this point, at every stage, and I'm going to use it red, we're going to have up here seal of God, and down here mark of beast. Okay? At every stage, there's going to be people dropping off, even through here. So when we say that probation closes at Sunday law, this is a process of decision making. Now, let me read a quote from 9 Testimonies, page 97. The time of God's destructive judgments is the time of mercy for those who have had no opportunity to learn what is truth. Tenderly will the Lord look upon them. His heart of mercy is touched. His hand is still stretched out to save. Probation's open, while the door is closed to those who would not enter. So we're going to have people dropping off all at these points because, you know what? I'm not going to get a fine for this. I'm going to take the mark of the beast. I'm not going to go to prison for this. I'm not going to be, I'm going to be bribed. You know what? If they give me $1 million, I'll take the mark of the beast. No buy, no sell. And please don't anybody clip that. I'm talking in other people's position here. No buy, no sell. You know what? I can't do that. I can't live without buying or selling. And maybe then here, maybe it's been a week. Maybe it's been a month after the no buy, no sell. Maybe it's been a year after the no buy, no sell. And this is where we really need to focus in here. So at this point, we're going to have a group of people, once they receive the seal of God, okay? So seal of God, and we find that in the book of Revelation, chapter 7. And who has this? Well, it's the 144,000. And they have a special message, and that message is called the loud cry. And the loud cry is given to the whole world. COP, close of probation. And then there is all these people here. Okay. Hope you like my artwork. And they're receiving the loud cry, and they're like, yes, we're going to stand for the truth. We're going to receive the seal of God. Now they get the seal of God. And these are called the great multitude. The great multitude of people that come in because of the loud cry message given by the 144,000. The loud cry is given. These people refuse the mark of the beast. And they then in turn join in the ark, this antitypical ark in the country living situation. Now, again, we've seen here, people are going to be dropping off all at these points. So it's not like Sunday law kicks in at its initial stage of, some fines and probation closes. No, that's not how it works. The first time, though, that someone who knows better takes the mark of the beast, keeps Sunday holy, sacred, to gain, whether it's because of fines, imprisonment, bribery, or they can't buy or sell, they receive the mark of the beast. If they know better, if they are part of the world, from all nations, kindred, tongue, and people, once the message comes to them and they decide to then enter in, they can receive the seal of God too. So I hope that made that a little bit more clear. We're going to discuss that in a lot more detail in some upcoming studies. Thank you for your question. Okay, we have a great question here. Fasting Star channel number 5. And this question is the time of trouble the same as the tribulation? This is, I can't even get into this today because it's such a big question. So let's go here. We have time of trouble. Fantastic question. And then we have this thing called tribulation. Now, I really shouldn't even get into this right now because it really deserves a thorough study itself, and we are going to cover this completely in its own study. I want you to quickly go to Matthew 24. Matthew 24. Just quickly. And this might be different than something you've ever heard before. But this is important. Matthew 24, and we're going to verse 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. This is Matthew 24. I'm going to write it here. Matthew 24, verse 20 to 22. Okay? This verse right here talking about this tribulation is not this. And there's a big reason why. Some might recognize these dates: 538, 1798. There was 1,260 years that the papacy was the world dominating power. World power. 1,260 years. And their rule went to 1798, specifically February 15, which is actually a very, very fascinating date for many reasons, but we won't get into that today. So papacy rule. And this is the tribulation that is talked about there. And like I said, I can't get into all the details right now, but it says it's going to be shortened. Is that the case? Well, it just so happens that it is the case. So in 1798, that's when papal rule ended. But when did the persecution end? It actually ended in 1755. Exactly as the prophecy said it would. And this is very important because we have in verse 29, Matthew 24, verse 20 to 22, and then verse 29, it says here in verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days. So after the tribulation of those days, well, after the tribulation in our days, Jesus is coming. Of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So immediately after this, when persecution ends and this is shortened, we should see one of the events. Amazing enough, what happened on this day? The Lisbon earthquake. Exactly like Matthew 24, verse 29 says. And this catapulted all the events, these signs of Jesus coming. Then we had other events. We had the falling of the stars. That was in 1833, etc. I mean, we could list lots of things. So these, just at a brief glance here, are not the exact same time. There is connections, though, which we will have to talk about in another study, but I hope this clarifies to you. If you just keep reading to verse 29, it clarifies that it's the signs of the second coming happen after the tribulations of those days. Great question, though. I know a lot of people say that it's the same thing, and they say that the time at the end, things are going to be shortened. That's not the case. This is talking about a different time frame. Okay. Daniel Q. Question. Are you or can you give us some information and advice on farming sometime soon? Absolutely. And there's a resource that you can go to right now. It's called the How to Country YouTube channel. There's my version of a YouTube play button. If you go to the How to Country YouTube channel, you can see stuff there. Now, directly taking in consideration what we're talking about here, I will be doing several studies on all of this, talking about weeding, talking about water, talking about wood, talking about all of these things in detail, because we haven't really got to the point where how much land do you need? We only got how much land space for your garden. And I would make sure I had 5 acres for garden area, minimum. That'd be my bare minimum, is 5 acres of usable garden space land. But 100%, we'll be talking about that in a lot more detail. Okay. Fasting Star channel number 5. Question: we don't know how to farm. Can we live a Christian commune or a small how to farm? Can we live, I guess, in a Christian commune or a small town near a farming area? So again, this is God will bring people together that need to come together. If you don't have means, just one person, and you have other people that are like-minded and you've prayed about it and you've really seen that, you can work together. I do think it's beneficial for people to be learning. If not, go to somewhere you can learn, get paid to learn, or volunteer to learn. Even if it's room and board, I mean, there's no loss, because this is so critical that we are willing to give all. And people aren't. That's the reality. They're not willing to give up their job. They're not willing to give this or that to do what needs to be done to prepare for the no buy, no sell. And when it comes, you'll be unready. Ellen White says that God's people will be unready for the events to come. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I think you need to learn from other people who are doing it and who've done the thing. So it's great to go to a big commercial potato grower, but that's not really going to help you on how to homestead self-sufficiently without buying or selling. So a little bit different obstacles there, but definitely learning how to grow regardless is 100% useful. Learn from people that have done it before. And I hope I gave you enough information there. Anilda Diaz question: I need to learn how to cultivate. Do you have some training? Absolutely, we have training. We have our farm apprenticeship program, farm.amazingdiscoveries.org. We're also trying to work on a course that people can get so that they can learn these things in depth and have the resources. We're working on booklets, on things for people. That's what we're trying to do, is get people ready for the coming events. Absolutely. Okay. Here's another question. What kind of food would you grow in 1 acre to sustain a person for 1 year? This is a really good question. I might come around to this again. Rowan Tilbury question. Sorry if I missed this, but how long do you think we need to grow food for? And he says 3.5 years, question mark, question mark. Okay. This is one of my favorite questions. And I'm not going to give my typical answer online because people will take it out of context. But we have a timeline here. Right here is no buy, no sell. Okay? I have a week, I have a month, I have a year, and I have years. And then let me see what else. Okay, we're going to go like this. Seal of God, mark of the beast. Okay. And the thing is, at the end of this, I should have made this slightly smaller. Let me back this up a little. It's not time specific here. At this point in time, is only those who are inside, and I know this is an upsetting thing for me to say, inside the self-sustaining ark. So let's run through this quickly. After the no buy no sell starts, maybe you're in the city. And remember, there's an important point here. There is no death decree here. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to die as a martyr. There's no death decree here. That only happens way farther down the line. And we'll get there. That happens. COP, close of probation. SC is second coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This only happens way down here. That's when the death decree happens. Okay? So that's not a, some people think it's like a quick way out. Maybe you're in the city and you'll last a week and then your plumbing doesn't work. You don't have water. You don't have all these things. God's warning ahead so we can get ready. Maybe you're in like a country setting and you can last maybe a month or something like that. Maybe even, you last a year because you're a prepper or, whatever, but you're not inside the self-sufficient ark yet because you don't think it's necessary. Here, at this point, this whole process of no buy, no sell has to take long enough time to weed out all the people to get to only those who are inside the self-sufficient ark. And if we go based on examples throughout history of Sunday laws, they're not short. These things are not short time frame. There was a there's a question posed. 3.5 years? Here's the problem. We can't do that. Why? Because, I'm going to use blue again. Revelation 10, I think it's verse 6 or 7. 6, verse 6 says, time no longer until probation closes. And is the Sunday law inside probationary time? Yes. So that means time is no longer, which means there is no time prophecy. And that means no day for a year, That also means no day. Whoops. You know what? I'll just write it like this: for a day. No literal time. No symbolic time. No literal. All we know is that we will have to raise our own provisions, for the time of trouble will be very serious. Not the great time of trouble, the time of buying and selling. Sorry, I said that wrong. The time of buying and selling will be very serious. How long does it take you to grow food? Well, it takes you a while. It's not, you don't, here's your ground, and you don't drop a little seed in the ground and, 1 week later, you don't have a plant with tomatoes on it, right? This is a very quick little tomato plant here. You don't see that in a week. This is months. This is prep time. This is thinking time. This is working the soil. This is, a big process. And again, like we said, this is supposed to weed out all of the rest of these people. Everyone who's going to take the mark of the beast needs to be weeded out. And the only ones left are those who are fully obedient and prepared for the crisis. And that's going to take time to prove these people. What this is proving the level of obedience. I should do a whole topic on this. There was a rich young ruler. He was really rich. Now, here's the problem. What was he told? Sell all you have and follow me. And he said, that's a hard thing. And he went away sad. Are we willing to sell everything we have, the boat, the fancy car, the house, the everything, in order to follow what God said? Or are we not going to want to do that? And we're going to be sad because we don't want to give up those things. We don't want to give up the ease and all of this. But it's a process. How obedient are we? Because that guy said, I keep all the commandments. Is that enough? That we don't kill people? No. We have to follow. And I think I spelled follow wrong up there. We need to follow Jesus. And where did he go? He went into the wilderness, the mountains, every day. Now, if he wasn't close to the mountains, he couldn't get there every day. So you have to be close to the mountains in order to do this every day, in order to have that spiritual growth. But I'm getting off topic here. Thank you for your question. I don't have a time frame. All I know that it's going to be way longer than people expect, because that's the point. It has to be difficult. Will it be 3.5 years? I don't know. Will it be 5? Will it be 10? Will it be 20? Will it be 30? I don't know. But I guarantee you, I don't plan for 1 month. That I know for sure, because I can't grow food in 1 month, and we're told we're going to have to grow. Sarah Miranda. Sarah Miranda question, would you be able to store and eat these for winter? Absolutely. This is the thing. You need to grow things that you can store. Super important. We'll talk about that in another video. Just right off the bat, I'll just give you a couple quick little things that are super easy. Grain is easy. Like wheat, flax, all of these things, super easy. You can have dry beans. You can make a sauerkraut. I don't know how to spell that, so we'll erase it. Sauerkraut. You can your food. You can dry your food. Some things store a long time, like great things are potatoes, turnips. They store super long. Carrots even. We have turnips in our root cellar right now from last year that are still good to eat, and rutabaga. That's a great one as well. There's lots of things. We'll talk about that more in another video. Okay, I'm going to have to speed up because we're getting so many questions here. Rowan Tilbury question, is there a rough length of time we need to garden for? I think I just answered that. Corinne Lown, I'm sorry. Corinne, however you pronounce it, question, will it be in the mini course to come amazing discoveries? Will it be in the mini course to come amazing discoveries? I'm not sure what you're asking exactly, but I don't know if it's when will the mini course or what will be in the mini course. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things, country living. That might take a little while for us to produce. If you can support that, we'd highly appreciate support for that. It takes a lot of time and effort to put together a really comprehensive course like this. Okay. Joshua Jerome question, what about creatures and critters? We've tried growing stuff, but the deer and squirrels eat our plants. This is a really, really great question. Dealt with a lot of these issues before. We'll talk about this in another presentation. Jacob, if you could grab some of these things to talk about just so we don't miss them, but some of the critters and how we can get around them. You may have to put up a deer fence. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're putting up a deer fence so that the deer can't even come in. Squirrels, different things will not like certain plants. You can plant certain things around there. There's ways that you can get around that. Cayenne pepper, you can put that in your plants. That works quite well. So we'll talk about that more in some upcoming studies. Marilyn Richardson question, the 4 acres, is it including the home? No, because like we said, it takes 1 acre per person of solid. So if this is 1 acre, solid food production, and your house would be beside that. One acre per person, that's just your garden space. Okay, Mandy Howe. Question, hi MacKenzie, where do we get our original supply of seeds? Fantastic question. There's some good seed companies out there. We are going to be selling seeds at some point, possibly this upcoming winter. And So keep an eye out for that. I have been testing seeds for years and years and years. What are the best for different climates? We can talk about that in an upcoming study. That would be a great conversation. Types of seeds, what varieties to grow. These are all great, especially when you're new. It can seem overwhelming. There's a lot, and there is thousands of varieties of different things. I do have my personal favorites that are just tried and true and grow, and you can save the seed. That's another conversation that we'll be talking about because that's an important skill. You can probably hear the rain just beating down outside here. So if we have a glitch in the system, the generator should kick on soon, hopefully. Pam, question from Pam. Do you need livestock to plow or reap a garden, or can you do this all manpower? Really good question. So let's say you have your garden here, and can you do this? You know, we have our little farmer guy here, and he's holding a nice hoe. And then we have this guy over here, and he's got, I don't think I'm going to do a very good job drawing here, but he's got some oxen guy. I should have practiced this before. To help him plow his field. Okay. That's supposed to be a plow. I have done testing personally, trying with different hand tools to weed, between the rows or the beds. I highly recommend doing bed gardening versus just single rows with walking paths. If you want to do potatoes, things like that, you have to work the ground somewhat that's loose enough for them. You're going to be digging the potatoes. You're going to be doing this. You have to take care of the weeds. So the top of the soil has to be soft enough. You can use mulches. I love using mulches. I love using living covers and all of this. But there's certain times that you can or you cannot do that. And using an animal is so much faster and easier. If you go to E.G. White writings and see what she used, it was all oxen. That's what she used to work her garden. There was no such thing as a tractor in her days. And you're not going to either because you don't have fuel. If you break one little piece, then you're out of commission. Rototiller, you're not going to be able to use that either. You're going to be reliant, and some guys who have the money have a BCS tractor. You're not going to be able to use that either because you need fuel, you need oil changes, you need parts, you need all of this. I'll be talking about some of that. Like I said, I'm training the oxen here. Even just moving things around. Let's say you're harvesting your garden and you have this nice big tote of potatoes you grew. Okay? Nice big thing of potatoes. How are you going to move 2,000 pounds of potatoes? I mean, you could do it by wheelbarrow or by bucket. That's a long ways to get from your garden to your root cellar back to your house. And if you just had a cart with some tires on it that you can hook up to your animals, it would be so much easier. What about getting your wood? You need to get wood for the winter time. You can get your animals to move it. Okay, we'll go to the next question. Wow. I think this is going to be the most questions we've ever gone through on a live stream. I love it. I love the questions. Okay. So One quick thing on this. Oxen versus horses. So we have oxen here versus horses. We're going to talk about this another time. I won't talk about this now. There's reasons for one over the other. I'm not going to say that one is terrible and one is not terrible. There's definitely pros and cons to both. For beginners, I don't know how to spell beginners. Can't spell to save my life. Oxen is definitely for you. Okay. Kevin Morrison question: with 1 acre of garden for food, how much do you need for growing seed to keep growing? That will fit in the 1 acre. That's the great news. In that 1 acre. So this represents 1 acre. Let's say you have this section here and it's lettuce. You probably only need that much. I mean, this is not exact numbers here, obviously, that you're going to leave for seed. And we're going to color this brown because we're letting it mature and get seeds. Now, there's an art to keeping proper seeds and which plants you select for that. But for instance, if you have a dozen, this is what I recommend. A dozen plants to keep seed. So 12 different plants, and that gives enough genetic range. If you only take one plant, your gene pool is going to get smaller. You want a little bit of that cross-pollination between the 12 plants, and that'll give you plenty of seed in most cases. Even if you're doing potatoes, let's say you're doing a big, patch of potatoes, and you have all this area, it's going to be about the same. Small little section that you're going to need for seed, and it's going to fit inside of that acre, everything there. Okay. Kaveta Jane's question: when the Sunday law hits, won't the death decree go out for the Sabbath keeping folks? We mentioned this up here, that the death decree does not take place. So there's no death during the whole Sunday law time until here after the close of probation. But once the death decree is enforced, here's the great news. Here's the absolutely great news. No faithful die, and that is Daniel 12, verse 1. So once the death decree hits, nobody dies. In fact, from my study, nobody dies from this point onwards. Everybody's trying to say that Sunday law comes, there's going to be this mass amount of martyrs. It's not the case. We're going to have a whole study on this. You guys need to be so excited because God is so merciful. When you leave Egypt, he doesn't let you die in the Red Sea. He parts it for you. Okay. Lehman's parent chief. I'm sorry. Question: will we be able to use Bitcoin to buy and sell as it separates from the banks and governments? No, because this isn't only a government thing. This is people who have the mark of the beast aren't going to want what you have. And if they don't have the mark of the beast, they can't buy or sell either. And they have nothing you want because they're living in the city and don't have anything for you. And you don't have anything that they want. Listen to this quote here. This is from 5 Testimonies 152.2. The time is coming when we cannot sell at any price. No bartering. No, here, let me trade you stuff. None of that. No buy, no sell. It doesn't say buying and selling with different currency. It's not at all. The decree will soon go forth, prohibiting men to buy or sell of any man, save him that hath the mark of the beast. So this is going to be a total economic boycott. It's going to be just like there was boycotts before, where people would not touch those people because they were off limits and they were bad for society and they were traitors and all these things. Okay. Francine Meadows. Francine Meadows question, how long the time of trouble will last for us? Okay. Let's go back up here. So we have our little timeline of the no buy, no sell. And we said that this, we do not know the exact amount of time. What we do know is most likely it will last years. Okay? Now, after the close of probation, and this is Revelation 10, verse 6. This is, oops, no time until probation closes. Now, in Revelation 18, it says that the plagues fall for one day. Revelation 18, I think that's verse 8 or 9. Let me see here. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. Verse 8. One day. And then we use Ezekiel 4, verse 6. And that is a day for a year. So that means the time of trouble lasts 1 year. The time of trouble, this time frame here, is 1 year. Okay? That's from Revelation 18:8. Thank you for the question. And we're going to go into that in more detail in some later studies. Marie and Antoine question, how much water is enough? That is a great question. We're going to talk about that in another study. Broquist Nation question, how can I grow sustenance if I have sold my land? You can't sell your land. What do you mean by that? We're told that we need to have country properties. I don't know if you're referencing what someone said, that we need to sell our properties. There's some things that people are saying that are twisting some different quotes. I don't know if you're talking personally. We're supposed to sell encumbrances, and we'll do a whole study on this. And these are debt properties. These are money-making properties like rentals, things like this. And we're supposed to sell those and invest in our country property and in evangelism. Question. This is Lindy Roesk. Question, how tall is your deer fence? Your deer fence should be 8 feet. Okay? I apologize if that is, getting expensive because 8 feet tall. But I'm using page wire, 8-foot page wire, 8 foot, because if it's shorter than that, the deer's just going to jump over it or they're going to push through it. I've tested electric wire. I've tested a lot of different methods. It's best to put the right thing in and keep them out. In Canada, we have this friendly looking guy here. and he is a moose. And they are massive, and they would like to go and take care of some of the things in your garden as well, especially your fruit trees. So we need to keep him out. And unfortunately, he's going to be sad because of it, but we need to make sure that we are going to be okay during this time. Okay. Lorem May Vacalaires, I apologize. Question: while growing your own produce and not yet ready for harvest, is it possible to store store-bought foods for everyday to consume? Absolutely. You can get some bulk foods. That's great. You're gonna definitely need to be growing your own food because you can't store that much. Like I said, if you're having 2,000 pounds a person, you're gonna need thousands and thousands of pounds of food in order to have enough for a family, and that's just not sustainable. Plus, you don't have all the enzymes and your vitamins and all the living compounds from live food. But absolutely, I recommend that people get these 5-gallon buckets, 3-gallon buckets. They're food grade. We can get them at Canadian Tire. I'm sure Home Depot has them. If you look on the bottom, there's a little symbol. It'll look like this, and it'll have a number in it like that, and it will say whether it is food safe plastic. So just look up, you just Google online what numbers are food safe, and there's all the numbers are there: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it'll tell you which ones are food safe, and you can see if any of those buckets are food safe for you. A lot of the Rubbermaid tubs are food safe. We have some really nice big black tubs that have a giant blue lid on top. They have like squares on them. You can get them at, I believe, at Lowe's, at Home Depot. At Home Depot, they're black with yellow lids. They're food grade. They're fantastic for root vegetables as well to keep them moist. And we have them, right, like I said, right now. Okay. And I think we're going to take our last question for the evening because it is getting very late. AJ Friedberg question: won't sealed people be imprisoned? Now, this is a very good question, but here's the thing. Was Joseph imprisoned? Yes, but if we're supposed to be growing our own food, God needs to make a way that we will be able to do that. And he is going to make that happen. We're going to have all sorts of threats, but God is going to make sure that his people are able to do what they need to do. There's going to be people are going through different times, but it's not our choice to choose. We don't get to choose. Are we going to be one of these people or these people? All our choice is to obey. And the faster we obey, the less trouble we will be in. And those who have been practicing country living and practicing character development before the time of trouble, it'll be much easier. We're told that even in the Bible. So I highly recommend people start doing that now to get moving. It changes you. And there's a huge difference between growing food with a tractor and growing food with animals. This has been an amazing journey, learning about the oxen and the horses and all these things, which we'll talk about. We have some documentaries coming out on this. We've been filming with other people, other farms. And, Ellen White says that the ABC of education is agriculture, and that it teaches you character development. And I realized, yeah, okay, but I didn't fully understand it until I seen about working with animals, because you have to communicate with something that's not talking. They can't speak English. You have to feel them. They have emotions, they have feelings. And Well, we'll talk about that more, but there's some amazing testimonies and things regarding that. But I really want to thank everyone for being here today and for joining us. This is such an important topic. If you want to learn more, make sure you join our newsletters so that you're staying up to date and you receive the study notes, because then you can go and you can reference everything later. Um, and this is, it takes your full attention. I mean, we're preparing for the greatest crisis that has ever seen the world, greater than Noah's flood, greater than Joseph's famine, greater than all these things we're going to see. And it's going to be a test to really see who's going to follow and who's going to have faith that God will help them through and get them to the promised land that he promises he will give each of us as we're trying to build our ark. So God bless, have a good night, and we'll see you at the next study. God bless.